organizers for having invited me. Special thanks to Jibin Gogu, because normally carpal instability is given a time slot for the afternoon siesta. So I'll try my best in the next 10 minutes to put you to sleep in a complex topic. How not to miss? Because your eyes sees only what your mind knows. Sometimes your mind knows, your eyes also can see, but what you see is not properly focused. Like this injury to the finger PAP joint, where the patient was going from one clinic to other with X-rays like this. It was treated conservatively. Finally, at the end of 1 month, you take a fresh lateral X-ray to show that the fracture is there is a fracture dislocation of the PAP joint. Similar way, carpal instability that we commonly encounter in our day-to-day practice due to trauma, mostly the transcaphoid perilunate or the perilunate dislocations, normally is missed either by GP or sometimes even by orthopedicians, because you don't focus on where exactly the problem is. When you have a patient with a severe swelling, you get an X-ray of the wrist as well as forearm, you miss the area where the injury is, and then you treat it maybe conservatively or with a slab, only to see that you have missed a major problem. The same patient, when you have a X-ray which is focusing on the wrist, shows that the Gilula's arcs are all deranged and he has got a major problem in the wrist. Carpal instability is something like a blind man with elephant, because initially you have the wrist, there was a ling concept, then came the column concept, then the ring concept, then you have multiple stabilizers. You don't have one single ligament which will give ultimate stability. So you have multiple stabilizers, you have the philosophy of isodynamism, and then we know that muscles are also stabilizers, so muscles also have a role to play. Then comes the confusion regarding treatment. Each year you have different sets of treatment for carpal instabilities. Basically, you have a carpal instability when there is symptomatic malalignment, or the wrist is not able to bear loads, physiological loads, or it does not have normal kinematics during any portion of its arc of motion. This basically sums up. This slide is not to confuse you. Only if you have this in your mind, you can get the history from the patient as whether the problem is due to trauma or some inflammation or some other pathology. So this is how you divide the carpal instability with regard to chronicity, constancy, etiology, location of the instability, direction of instability, etc. So when you have a patient, you get the history regarding the trauma and its details, whether there is a fall on the outstretched hand, hand was pronated and supinated, if you can get it. Whether it is insidious, whether other joints are involved, whether it affects his daily activities. Symptoms can be pain on loading the wrist, or it can be clunks or giving away. When you have clunks, you have to know whether it is giving pain to him or is it affecting the activities of daily living. The signs that you can get in instabilities, you have to look for the point of maximum tenderness, because wrist is a complex region. Only if you can point to the maximum point of maximum tenderness, you can come to a definitive conclusion as to what the problem is. You have to look for swelling, you have to look for deformity, and you have a lot of provocative tests. It's a plethora of provocative tests depending upon the instability. When you image, you have to get a PA view of the wrist. Just like you are getting a true lateral of the finger, true PA view of the wrist is very important, where you draw the Gilula's line, Gilula's arc. You have 3 arcs, and if they are in line, there is no major instability. Sometimes you look for the piece of pie sign. The lunate, whenever it is dislocated, it will look triangular. So this is the piece of pie sign of the lunate. Then you have the spill teacup sign in true lateral, where the lunate gets dislocated from the radiocarpal joint. In an APPA view, you also measure the carpal height ratio. That is, the normal is about 0.54 plus minus 0.03. There is carpal collapse, that also indicates carpal instability. Carpal collapse can be there in trauma or even due to regenerative disease or even in cane box disease. In a lateral X-ray, you have a lot of angles. So this shows how you draw the different angles, how you take the axis of scaphoid. Next one indicates how you take the axis of lunate. Fourth one is how you take the axis of capitate, and last one is for the radiate. So depending on this, you measure the scapholunate angle, which is normally about 30 to 80, capitolunate, which is about 15 plus minus 15, and then the radiolunate, which is about 15. And then describe your instability as either dorsal or polar. A DC means dorsal intercalated instability, where the lunate is facing dorsally. Here you have scaphoid ring sign due to flexed scaphoid, and the lunate which is going along with the trichotrum into extension. So that produces the DC instability, dorsal. We see instability, the lunate looks polarly because the link with the scaphoid is intact and the lunate will look polarly. Stress view also is very important when you have a normal X-ray. You take a stress view in a clenched fist view, and you can even use both hands as a comparative sign. That will show up a dynamic instability as in scapholunate instability. That can also, stress views can also be done at the trichotrolunate joint also. MRI is the other radiological investigation that you, but this requires dedicated coils and high resolution images, preferably 3 Tesla. And MRI can only suggest, it's not 100% specific for any particular ligament injury or instability. Video fluoroscopy can be done to assess the midcarpal instability, where under anesthesia or in theatre, in video fluoroscopy you can see the catch-up trunk which is very specific in midcarpal instability. Arthroscopy is the gold standard to identify the injury and grade the injury also. Commonest carpal instability that we see in our day-to-day practice is scapholunate, and the causes mostly fall on the outstretched hand. The specific test that we can employ here is the Watson's test, which denotes instability of the scapholunate ligament. You have to compare it with the contralateral side, and you have the scapholunate ballotment test also, which can detect instability. So this X-ray shows there is the gap between the scaphoid and lunate, which is otherwise known as Terry-Thomas sign, and in the lateral X-ray you can see that the lunate is facing dorsally. A stress view is taken with both hands in clenched position, which shows that there is increased gap in one side, whereas the other side the normal relationship is maintained. When you have a scapholunate instability, you ask a lot of questions, whether it is acute, that is less than 10 days, where the ligaments can be repaired, or it is subacute, less than 6 weeks, where healing potential is less, so you have to go for some augmentation, or it is beyond 6 weeks, chronic, where there is poor healing potential, so you would have to go for some ligament reconstruction, capsulodesis or tenodesis. Other things that you ask for is whether the injury is partial. Partial means it is only a dynamic problem, only during stress you are getting it. So secondary stabilizers are intact. There is, or is it static, where the secondary stabilizers are also lost. Then you ask whether the scaphoid is tilted into flexion and is it correctable. If it is correctable, you can manage it with your ligament reconstruction or capsulodesis. If it is not correctable, the tilt in the scaphoid is not correctable, that means you have to go for some salvage procedure like limited fusion or proximal row carpectomy. And the last question you ask is whether there are any degenerative changes in the adjacent joints. If there is, then you go for salvage procedure. So this slide shows you how you stage the scapholunate ligament depending on the questions that you ask and the answers that you get. So you have 6 stages. When you have an acute injury, mostly you see a gap at the scapholunate ligament, and if it is repairable, you approach the tear in the ligament through a dorsal approach, and then ligament repair is done with a suture anchor, and then you pin the scapholunate as well as scaphocapitate to decompress the joint so that it gives some rest to the repaired ligaments. You retain the ligament KYS for about 6 weeks and then start your mobilization after 6 weeks. When it is subacute or chronic and it is the tilt is reducible, you have to go for a ligament reconstruction in the form of strip with extensor carpi radialis longus or so, where the ligament is tied from lunate to scaphoid proximal pole and another limb is tied to the distal pole. Luniotricutal ligament instability is the other common variety, and the cause can be either traumatic, ulnocarpal abutment, or it could be a part of perilunate injury. Here you have tenderness in the lunate tricutal region. Shear test will be positive. Ballotment also will be positive in the luniotricutal region. This is again divided into 3 stages. Stage 1 is dynamic, stage 2 is static, and stage 1 is plain, stage 2 is dynamic, and stage 3 is static. So depending on the stage, for stage 1 you can either immobilize and rehabilitate. Stage 2 you have to do an open repair of the molar ligaments. Stage 3, if it is reducible, you can do a repair. If it is not, do a salvage in the form of limited fusion. Transscaphoid perilunate is the other injury that we commonly see, which can be either a greater arc injury if the bones are involved, or lesser arc injury if the ligaments alone are involved. So this is the Mayfield stages. It starts from the radial side, goes to capitate lunate, then triquetral-lunate, and finally ends up with the radiolunate injury. So when you have a ligament injury, in stage 1 it could be either a scapholunate. If it is bony in the stage 1, it could be a scaphoid fracture. In stage 2, the injury to the radioscaphocapitate ligament fracture could be either in the capitate or radial styloid. Stage 3, the lunotriquetral ligament is gone. If it is the fracture, it could be the triquetral fracture. Stage 4, you have dorsal radiotriquetral and radiolunate ligament injury, and when it comes to greater arc, it's a lunate fracture. So most important thing is to see the X-ray and then they come to a conclusion, and once there is a perilunate dislocation, you have to reduce the dislocation, look for median nerve problem, reduce dislocation by a closed method, and then treatments can be, when you have acute problem, you can pin the scapholunate, triquetral-lunate and scaphocapitate and immobilize for about 6 weeks. If your stability is not good, you have to go for open repair of the ligaments. When you have a transscaphoid perilunate, again you have to reduce it and fix the scaphoid followed by fixation of the other joints. The main thing to keep in your mind is that lunate is the keystone in this procedure. So first you have to reduce the lunate to the radius and then start working on the other problems. You may have severe injuries like this, where the scaphoid and lunate comes out as single piece and lying somewhere in the forearm with median nerve neuropathy. This patient, you can either try to put it back, or the easiest solution will be where you remove the bone and manage it with a proximal row carpectomy after median nerve decompression. Because the other method being putting the bone back and then fixing it, there is a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of time which will be there, and sometimes it will go in for avascular necrosis and all. And neglected cases which comes to you after 3 months or even after 6 weeks of transscaphoid perilunate is managed with a salvage surgery. Then we come to the last one, which is the midcarpal instability. Here you have a clunk which can be painless or painful, and there will be loss of strength in the hand. the instability could be either palmar or dorsal. Commonly it is the palmar that we see. And X-ray shows that the lunate is looking into the flexor aspect, VC. You have to try non-operative treatment initially, and subsequently if there is pain and severe restriction of daily activities, one surgery which is advised is dorsal capsule reefing or limited fusion. And finally, this is the one slide which can put you off if I had put it in the first start of my talk. So this patterns of instability, you have carpal instability dissociative, where the ligament injury is within the same row. If it is between the different rows, carpal between the radial and proximal or distal, it's called carpal instability non-dissociative. And the third one is carpal instability complex. The perilunate injury is a carpal instability complex. It has combined problem, both within the rows and between the rows. And the last one is carpal instability adaptive, where the problem is outside the wrist, but due to a radius fracture which is malunited, there is a instability in the wrist, which is to be managed by tackling the primary problem. Thank you.